Hello and welcome to another edition of the Moving Iron Podcast. This podcast is proudly provided by Axon, helping dealers move more iron for almost 100 years. Find out more at axontire.com. Axon was started almost 100 years ago out of a passion for keeping agriculture moving. It's that same passion that drives them today. With a vision for a better experience for both farmer and dealer, they set out to create a better way to move more iron. When you partner with Axon, you get immediate access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. Axon carries all major brands and sizes of tires, wheels, and tracks. From custom colors and sizes to fully customized wheels, you can have the solution for virtually any problem today's farmer is trying to solve. To find more or become an Axon dealer, please visit axontire.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Valley Transportation. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 or go to valleytransinc.com for all your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. This podcast is also brought to you by Ag Direct. No matter how you buy your ag equipment, from a dealer, auction, or a private party, Ag Direct can help you finance it. You can even apply online at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving Iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast, Tax Moves with Glen Birnbaum. Glen is a CPA with Sickich. And Glen, it's been a little bit since we had done one of these. How you been, man?
Hey, good. Yeah, I thought we'd start off the new year here with some tax updates. So.
Right on. Okay, well, it's new year. 2022 is done. So we got 2021 coming up. So we got fourth quarter estimates coming up. You got some other things going on, and before you know it, it'll be the thick of tax preparedness season here. So I guess, where do you want to start, Glenn?
Well, maybe let's start with the immediate thing is, as you said, the fourth quarter tax estimate is due. It's actually due Tuesday, January 18th. And, if you're a day late or 2 days late, it's not the end of the world. So obviously, if you forgot about it and you're listening to this podcast later in the week or whatever. But yeah, it is Tuesday, the 18th. And for farmers, so for, farmers and ranchers who have the general rule is about, at least 2/3 of their income coming from the farm, which, most farmers can qualify for that pretty easily. Gross income, not net income, but gross income. You can kind of file as a farmer, which means you can either file, and probably many listeners might be familiar with, well, hey, you don't have to make any estimates because I'm a farmer. As long as you file your return and pay your tax by March 1st, okay? And that is still true. So that's, not that far away. But the problem is with the lateness of tax season, we'll probably touch on that next, is that sometimes it's hard to get everything done by March 1st if you have other things, other K1s flowing in. So it's becoming a lot more common you still don't have to make quarterly tax estimates if you're a farmer, except for the fourth quarter one. So you don't have to make your first quarter, your second quarter, your third quarter. You can just make one fourth quarter estimate. And that then allows you to wait and file April 15th, kind of with the masses. So definitely something to think about. If you don't make any estimates at all and you pay, you wait until April 15th, they will charge you, the IRS charges about a 3% annual interest rate. It's not all that bad, but it is, remember, it's non-deductible. So it's, you can't deduct interest you pay to the IRS. So anyway, if you haven't made your estimates, or thinking about it, it's definitely something to look into to allow you more time so that we can file the return properly and get everything taken care of, not by March 1st, but by April 15th.
Okay. All right. So before we started talking, you were talking about the backlog at the IRS and how much they still have to process yet from 2021. I guess so. As you take a look at all that stuff there, and then you take a look at 22 coming down the pipe here, do you suspect to see some big delays in getting returns, or just responses back from the IRS with various questions that may be popping up?
Yeah, that's the kind of the big question right now. So the filing season for 2021, so I'm talking, personal tax returns. I mean, the IRS is going to open it up on January 24th. Okay, so next week. But the problem is the IRS is still, they're behind from last year. And this isn't, the IRS is short-staffed like a lot of businesses, and there've just been tons of work put on their plate. Retroactive law changes. If you remember something like the unemployment compensation, traditionally that is taxable income, and they came out, I don't know, I think in March of last year, said, "Oh no, we're gonna make a certain amount of it tax free." So, but yeah, this taxpayer advocate report came out here just in the last week or so, and it talks about how many unprocessed tax returns there are. 6.2 million unprocessed 1040s, 2.8 million unprocessed 941s, which are payroll tax returns, quarterly payroll tax returns. But a lot of those, when you have the employee retention credit claimed on there, if those are being sent in via the mail or whatever, so 2.8 million 941s, almost 500,000 of 941Xs. So that's just like amending the 941 for prior, for basically claiming the employee retention credit. 2.4 million of unprocessed 1040Xs. So that's, some sort of fix, some sort of adjustment to the return that caused taxpayers to have to refile it. So 2.4 million of that. But the biggest number is, I guess it's not the biggest number because we had over 6 million 1040s, but next in line, 4.75 million of unanswered taxpayer correspondence. So, these are like notices sent out, clients have sent, responses back, and, they just haven't been able to process all this stuff. So it's just tons of things that they've got to get caught up on before we can, really even start the 22 filing season for 2021.
Yep. Okay. So looking out right now, I mean, there's nothing out there anywhere that's going to say that they're last 20 and 21 both, they've pushed back the filing dates and those kind of things. With this backlog in the system, do you foresee any where they're going to ask you to file late or anything like that so they get caught up a little bit?
I mean, I think most all tax people probably want a normal tax season, but I think it's somewhat possible just with COVID still going around, and I guess there's a chance that they might extend it, but at this point, there's no talk about that. But it's kind of in the back of everyone's mind. One thing that they also kind of goes along with all this backlog, is, well, shouldn't there be some sort of penalty relief? Because if your payment was stuck, or or these laws are changing, are they going to provide relief of tax penalties, maybe interest, things of this nature? This taxpayer advocate report does kind of recommend that the IRS do this, but at this point, there's really no. I mean, you can certainly try to plead your case, but it's not anything really very global as far as how taxpayers get relief. So if you're late again, if your stuff's caught up, it could be delay in refunds and all sorts of things. And again, you're relying on the mail system and relying on somebody to kind of be in their office, I would assume. I don't know the IRS system too well, but if it comes in on paper, it eventually gets to somebody's desk. And it's going to be interesting how this season comes in. Now, as far as things that are changing for the 2022 season, the 2021 tax year, probably the biggest thing, and we don't have time to dig into this very much, is the advanced child tax credit payments. So people, with children started getting, in the last half of the year, they started getting kind of a monthly payment from the IRS, kind of direct deposit or maybe sometimes via check. And so that's really an advance. Again, it's called the Advanced Child Tax Credit. It's an advance on the increase that was passed by Congress earlier in the year. So it is going to, if you're getting that money, then, you're not going to have as much of a refund potentially come tax time. So the big thing there for your listeners to remember is the IRS is going to send some letters. Some of them may already got it, but they're going to send letters out telling the taxpayer how much money was received, how much money was paid. And for married folks, husband and wife, you're going to get two different letters. So you have to actually keep both letters. So that's going to be something that, if you didn't get the right amount, if you didn't get any, then your refund would go up, right? If you did. And so it's going to be something that's going to could be wrong, right? It is part of the reason we had this with the rebates. If you remember, we had two different rebates that actually kind of showed up on the 2020 tax return. Well, we're going to have the third rebate, the EIP 3, we call it. The third rebate is going to show up on this 2021 return. So that's going to be the second thing. The first one is the advanced child tax credit. The second one is the rebates. And so again, going back to 2020, if you didn't get your rebate checks, then we put it on the tax return and said, oh, okay, hey, they didn't get it, so send them. And so some of this delay is because maybe, the amounts weren't quite right. And the IRS, has to pretty much have a person look at each one of these, right? If it doesn't match, the IRS says, no, I think we actually sent this money to this taxpayer, and the taxpayer said they didn't get it, so there's kind of all this back and forth. So they're still recovering from that. That is part of the reason why we have those unprocessed 1040s. But then again, for 2021 tax year, this 2022 filing season, we're going to have two things that are kind of like that. It's going to be the advanced child tax credit, and it's going to be the third economic income tax payment. So it's not going to make it super easy on, your tax preparer or the IRS to make sure those numbers check out.
Okay. So as you look at right now, yeah, good. Yeah, no kidding. Good times. So I guess as you take a look at this going into 2022, is there anything that you're keeping your eye on early in 2022 here that could make a big change in what you see? I mean, we get this Build Back Better stuff that bill and stuff like that that's out there, and these different legislative things that are popping up here and there. But obviously, that Build Back Better deal is a pretty big difference. So I guess what are you paying attention to for 22?
We can talk about the BBB, the Build Back Better. I mean, I think back in the summer, everyone was virtually positive there would be something get passed in December. Probably right before Christmas is a traditional thing that happens, but it would happen a lot of times in the past with things like depreciation. Hey, we're going to extend bonus depreciation for, I don't know, I'll just make up a year, for 2014. Hey, we now have bonus depreciation, but the law doesn't get passed till December 23rd. So it doesn't really, do a lot of good to incentivize people to buy equipment. But that's kind of the way we kind of got into that pattern. So most people thought, well, yeah, Democrats are, have the majority now in the House, although thin, very thin, in the Senate with the, Vice President breaking the tie, that there's going to be something passed tax-wise. And, that infrastructure bill was passed. That was, definitely a little more bipartisan. But the BBB, didn't really, didn't get through the Senate. It did in the House. So, but the BBB really was kind of watered down. Didn't have near the things that we would have talked about back last summer, Casey. So it's just hard to know exactly what's going to happen. There were surtaxes put in if you make more than, big numbers, like huge numbers. If you make more than, $10 million, there's a surtax. If you make more than $25 million, there's a surtax. But none of that really, none of it did materialize. The one thing that could impact 2021, which would be problematic if it gets passed, in a month or two, would be the state and local income tax cap. So right now, state and local income taxes, I know we've talked about this years ago, is capped at $10,000. That's talking your income tax, your real estate taxes, sales taxes. You just add them all up, it's no more than 10 grand. Well, in that BBB, I've lost track, but I'm pretty sure it was going to be like 80,000. They were going to raise it from 10,000 to 80,000, and it would have been effective actually for 2021 tax year. So that's something we're still kind of watching. But every day that goes by that nothing gets passed, it doesn't sound like it's going to get taken up anytime soon. I'd be pretty surprised if it's, if anything really is retroactive back to 21. So for 22, it's just a matter of, can they actually get something passed, before we get too close to election time.
Yeah. Is there anything out there that you see for 22 where the standardized deductions that were put in by the Trump administration, where any of that's going to change?
No, it's a good question. Some of this stuff does start to phase down or sunset. There are a couple things. It's still a little ways off, but for 2023, so next year, 100% bonus depreciation. Basically able to write off any equipment, new or used. We've had 100% bonus now for several years. It is going to phase down to 80%. If Congress doesn't act, it goes down to 80%. So, that's something to keep in mind. I guess I'm, maybe putting a little plug in here, not intentional, Casey, but 2022 is the last year of, 100% bonus depreciation. So could be a good year to, look at buying some equipment.
Be a great year to come buy some equipment, Glenn.
So that's one. One that's actually in effect for 2022 right now is, we talked about this a little bit, is the interest expense limitation, where, you can only deduct 30%. Interest is only deductible at 30% of your EBITDA. Your earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation was a pretty big deal when it first came into play. Really, some clients that had a lot of interest and not a lot of income. There were some special rules for dealerships, as I remember. I think we talked about this. But actually for 2022, it is right now, it is going to be 30% of EBIT, which basically means it's just your income before tax, not before depreciation. So you would not get to add back depreciation to determine that 30% threshold. So some of these things start kind of sneaking up. I think another one is the R&D credits. Those start to R&D expenses and credits start to kind of phase down. I think everyone thinks that will, somebody will pass a fix, but these little budget things that they do, right, eventually end up coming to bear. And I guess if we think nothing's going to happen in Congress, or they can't pass anything, it could mean that more and more of these things come up and expire. But that's just a few, nothing too crazy, but it is something to keep in mind.
Right on. Well, good stuff as usual, Glenn. If any last thoughts you want to throw out there before we shut down the podcast?
I don't think so. I think it's, it's always nice to have a little more, time to again think through. Do we want to take a lot of depreciation or not? What are tax rates going to do in the future? I certainly think we get a few more months under our belt. We get to the summer, we're going to know a lot more about what's going to happen. So I still trying to tell clients that not to get in a big rush. I don't feel like it's definitely time to build the ability to use hindsight. Farmers have the ability, we've talked about this in the past, to take grain that's been sold in the fall, and they don't take their check under the proper deferred payment contracts. They don't take their check till January 2022. Well, you can retroactively elect to push that income back into 21. So I still think it's important to have some more hindsight and take your time on this. Just in this kind of uncertain environment that we're in case something would pass. So that's maybe my just kind of one tidbit, is I still don't think it makes sense to get in a big rush.
Right.
It's hard to go back without having to do an amended return, or certain sometimes you can't do that anyway, and then you're going to get backed up into all the other backlog the IRS has. So. Right. So that's been my little plug there.
Right on. Good stuff. Well, good stuff, Glenn. If folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what it is you're doing there at Sickich, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'm based in our East Pure office, so it's best just to call the local number there, which is 309-694-4251. You can go to our website, www.sikich.com. That's spelled SIKICH. Also, look me up on Twitter, at Glen Birnbaum is my handle.
Right on.
Happy to talk to anyone. So.
Good deal. Well, I am Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where you find the latest editions of the Moving Iron Podcast. Also go to MovingIronLLC.com for all the latest information about Moving Iron and the Moving Iron Summit. So, Glenn, good to talk to you again, man. Glad you could make it on the podcast.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Casey.
All right, Glenn, take care of yourself.
You want to have a meaningful competitive advantage to help sell more equipment. Whether you represent the sales, parts, or management department of an implement dealership, there's a surprising amount of complexity when it comes to tire, wheel, and track technology. Let Axon worry about that so you can get back to supporting your customers. Axon has leveraged years of experience to create a streamlined process that gives you a proven path to help today's grower and sell more equipment. The roots of their organization go back almost 100 years to the invention of the rubber tractor tire. Supporting agriculture is the number one driver of Axon, from product development through sales and service. To find more or become an Axon dealer, head over to axontire.com. Valley Transportation has been hauling ag and construction equipment across the country for the past 33 years. Call Parker at 800-657-4910 for all of your trucking needs. At Valley Transportation, our goal is to help you reach yours. And no matter how you buy ag equipment, from a dealer, auction, or a private party, AgDirect can help you finance it. You can even apply at agdirect.com. Learn more about your financing options at agdirect.com.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving